Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to Mystic Monday. I'm so glad that you are here. How about we take that deep breath to begin? Filling your lungs, dropping your shoulders, and inviting yourself into a receptive state. If you're new here, welcome. This is a weekly show that I put out on YouTube, also on my podcast, the Spiritually Empowered Podcast. So you can watch, you can listen, however you like to receive. And this is really the space for mystical souls who don't want to collude with hierarchy, with dogmatic teachings, who may not fit the box of religion, and who really want a deep connection with soul and with the God of their own understanding. For me, I grew up Southern Baptist, and I really never felt a sense of belonging in church. I always had a desire to know God, but this Father God that supposedly was male and up in the sky and judgmental, and you had to do these certain things and believe these certain things and follow this very narrow, specific path in order to receive the bounty of love or Christ. And it just, my body never felt at home in those teachings. And it wasn't until I found yoga in 2014. Actually, it was 2013. I was inside of a 4-year toxic relationship. I felt like I couldn't leave. I didn't have the spiritual strength to walk away. It was almost like I remember writing in my sketchbook late at night. I was also addicted to pot at this time, smoking all day, every day, pretty much. And I remember writing in my notebook, just waiting for the sun to come up, waiting. I just intuitively felt like something was coming. And I've always felt that way since childhood, that I'm here to do something big. And I didn't know what that was. And I would be floating down the river with my dad and kayaking. We love to kayak, and just feeling the weight of God's mission over my life. I believe that God and soul are one, that the closer we get to our own soul, this invisible, mysterious energy essence of us that really writes the story of our physical reality, the closer we get to soul, the closer we get to God, the closer we get to true fulfillment and power. And the fulfillment that can only be felt when we experience who we are again. This is a remembering. And this space is not just for studying at the level of mind. I've studied Eastern philosophy in depth since I had my awakening in 2013 through yoga. And I realized that you can reach God in any way. You can reach God in a million ways. You don't have to walk a specific path. I used to think something was wrong with me because I didn't feel belonging in those rooms, in those belief systems. And now I understand that that's okay. And all of that time waiting, God and soul used that addiction and that codependency and that relationship, used it to bring fire to my purpose. And the conversation today is about the law of balance. And since I had my first awakening, I have gone on to study energy medicine. I've trained over 45 people in Reiki. I've studied shamanic energy medicine in depth. I've had all these beautiful trainings where I've gotten to receive transmissions from master teachers in energy medicine, shamanism, and I'm also an ordained shamanic minister, and I'm about to become an ordained interfaith minister and receive my graduation. And really, I am here to help you return. Taoism says that we already are our essential self. you already have the connection to your purpose, your fulfillment, your worth. And so the question is always, what's in the way? Enlightenment, the goal of all spiritual practice, is a destructive process where who you are not dies. It gets put in the fire. In the sacred fire in shamanism, the fire represents rapid transformation. The spirit of the fire consumes the past. And then you come out on the other side, closer to who you are. That's why awakening often feels like remembering, a return to who you are. I'm also in recovery. I've been sober for a decade. And recovery is recovering who you are, your essential self. So, coming into this life, we experience trials. I believe our souls are so wise that we are set up to experience our specific challenges, our specific family. There are parts of our lives that have ease and flow and abundance, and other parts that we have to struggle through, right? And that's the law of balance. And it's really about taking those challenges and those struggles and those addictions, the things that almost took you down, finding the gift in it. And maybe I'm sure you've seen the sacred symbol yin and yang of Taoism. And that's the law of balance. There's light in the dark and dark in the light. And I love diving in to duality, the alchemical marriage. Healing is to become whole again. This reunification of the self, integrating the masculine and feminine, integrating the shadow and light, integrating the unconscious and the conscious mind, integrating the dualities to become whole again. And that's healing. And as we're on earth, there's no perfected state. There's no point in which we say, I have figured it out. Maybe we do come to that. And then moments later, there's a new task. Why? Because there's no limit to love. There's no limit to what you can create in your life. And so there's always more. There's always more to unravel, to heal, to release, to integrate, because there's no limit on love. And I want to bring you into a shamanic teaching that says half of our journey is to die to the past, to release, to edit our family line, to edit our stories. And the other half is to grow beauty, to focus on beauty, not physical beauty in the way of cultural obsession and conditioning, but the beauty way in shamanism, to see beauty, to think beautiful thoughts. What you think, you build. The thoughts you think most often become the house that you live in. There's a beautiful quote by a mystic. I'll have to put it in the description below, but it says, "Fear is too cheap of a house. I would like to see you living in better conditions." I can't remember who said that, but I'll look it up after this and share it below. Our task is to walk the beauty way. So, one half of our journey is about healing, editing, revisiting, going back, looking back, resolving the wounds. And some people get stuck in that place where they're always, always, always focused on healing and changing themselves and all of that. And my teacher, Alberto Villoldo, his shamanic mentor said to him, "Alberto, your garden, the garden of you, the garden of your spirit, the garden of your mind, it has no fruit trees. You're a weeder, Alberto. All you do is weed your garden, is heal your past and heal your past and heal, but there's no beauty in your garden." There's no beauty. And that means that he was just focusing on healing his daddy issues, which we need to do, right? We need to do that if we want freedom, if we want to not live out our parents' stories, if we want to create an original story. He didn't have any fruit trees, any orange trees, which meant he was only healing. So the balance to that is grow beauty, be in the healed state. You are the golden Buddha. You are the Christed one. It never left you. Thinking thoughts that align with your true nature. Shaman Durek had a death experience, a near-death experience, and he died and came back. Shaman Durek, and he said, he asked in the spirit world, why do we suffer? Why do we suffer? And he heard incorrect thought. Incorrect thought. Haunted house in the mind where you're thinking negative over and over, and you create a hell in your own consciousness. Hell is a state of consciousness, not a place, really. It's a state of being. You can have $1 million, you can have everything you want on the outside, and you can still be in hell. And that's part of my story with a lot of privilege, a lot of money, a lot of love in my upbringing. And still, I struggled. And I carried this story of I shouldn't struggle. I shouldn't feel depressed because I have all of this stuff. Well, addiction doesn't discriminate. Depression and soul wounds, they find each of us in unique ways, no matter what circumstances we're given. And so Shaman Durek realized that suffering, all suffering comes from incorrect thought. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Suffering happens when you think against yourself, when in your mind you're thinking, I'm ugly or I can't do this. And I still struggle with this sometimes, where I'll be in a low state, low emotions, and I'll be listening to why am I in a low state and asking my heart. And it's like, well, you've been judging yourself today. You've been comparing yourself today. That's why. Why are you in a low state? Because you've been thinking thoughts that are not true to your inner being. So when it comes to the alchemical marriage, the hieros gamos, the goal with quotes of all spiritual practice, we need to account for both sides of the coin, doing the deep healing and being your true self now, not later, not when you finally heal that one thing, because there's always going to be more to heal. If you woke up and said, I am the golden Buddha, my true self is here now, what would that look like? What thoughts would you think? The law of balance says there's light in the dark and dark in the light. So an example of this in real time is that pattern you've been struggling with, that thing that's been really hard. What if you thought thoughts that were like, the law of balance says, in pain, there is the hidden truth of joy. So where's the blessing in this pain? Where is the seed of healing in the wound? Rumi, Sufi mystic, says the wound is where the light enters you. And I think he talks about, or another mystic, some mystic talks about, my longing brought me to you, God. My longing, this ache. I'm thankful for this ache because it brought me to you. Because I ache, I reached towards you, God. That's the law of balance. that everything is in everything. And I know maybe you've experienced being in love or being in this beautiful moment and you grieved. Like imagine you meet your soulmate and you make love and you start crying because you know that one day one of you will have to bury the other one. In the center of joy is the seat of pain, is the seed of pain. In the center of pain is the seed of joy. And a free person, free from the shackles of addiction and codependency and all the things that keep us from the truth of our being, veil us. A free person is one who includes both dualities, who welcomes the grief in love. Doesn't go looking for it, doesn't go create it, but welcomes it if it arises. Ah, I welcome you as it arises. And I remember times when I was grieving a past partner, and I grieved so deeply and so sweetly, and I touched the center of that grief, and I found peace in the center of grief. I would love to hear in the comments if you know what I'm talking about here, if you would be open to share an example or to put a red heart in the comments if you have touched peace in grief, if you have touched love at the center of pain. What a fascinating experience of duality on this planet. And who you are, your true self, so to speak, your soul, which is one with God. Hinduism calls it the Atman. Your soul is one with God. Hinduism calls it Brahman. If you're familiar with the Upanishads, the most esoteric teaching of the Vedas, the end of the Vedas, the Vedanta, the deepest esoteric teaching there is Atman equals Brahman. Your soul is one with God. What you're looking for never left. This is the mystic secret. What you're reaching for, what you're longing for, what you ache for. Maybe it's not money, maybe it's not the love. We get to want those things, but every desire at the core, we're wanting ourselves. We're wanting our truth. We're wanting love. And what is love if not God? The deepest awakening we can have is that love never left. And when you remember that and you live your life from that remembrance, you create beauty everywhere you go. You create healing everywhere you go effortlessly. The age of Aquarius, the age of our becoming, who we are stepping into as a species through this incredibly chaotic time. There's beauty in this. And that's not to say, it's not to bypass it. That's just to say, as a mystic, our job is to find the beauty in the pain, to alchemize it, to be a lighthouse for others, to be a place of hope for others. This is the time of our awakening, of our remembering. And when we do that, everywhere we go effortlessly, we embody love. That's what this is. So if you're out here struggling, like all the rest of us, in one way or another, having that beautiful experience where more of you is being called forward, the challenge of life that we are all in, take it on. What's the gift? How is it shaping you? Who are you becoming in the fire of that challenge? A person of power is a person who embraces duality and your true self, who you really are. Your true self, one with God, is outside of duality. Pain, joy, yin, yang, masculine, feminine, light, dark, sun, moon, duality. who you are is outside duality. You're everything. You're both. Some people say they go into extremes, right? Where they go into you are the duality and nothing exists beyond this. And then some people say matter's not real. And there's two extremes. One of them is overly spiritual, one of them is overly thinks it's trapped in the human experience. What's the center? The Buddha said middle path. Middle way is the way, not extremes. Here's spiritual bypassing. None of this is real. And here's people who think there's nothing beyond this. You're both completely human, completely one with God. And how does that feel when you hear that? Maybe there's relief, maybe there's tears. How does it feel to remember? Remember. To remember means the end of dismemberment. Dismemberment means you lost your limbs, right? You were dismembered, fragmented. To remember is to come back, to remember, to put yourself back together again. Every challenge, everything you've done, quote unquote, wrong, every low is preparing you for a high. And when you start to identify with the part of you that never stepped into the river of time, as my teacher Alberto Villoldo in shamanism would say, when you identify with the part of you that isn't in duality, that's not dancing back and forth, the God within is not connected to an emotion. The truth of your being is not connected to high or low. It's beyond, it's outside duality. You could call it love, but your inner being is not an emotional state. Your inner being is not attached to an emotional, fluctuating state. It is consistent. It never left. It's always there. It is the abiding presence. It's pure consciousness. We all have it. And it's at the center. It is beyond duality. And it's an amazing, exciting challenge to talk about because what the mind does is it's in duality and it sifts and sorts and it separates and it divides and it does that dance. And the mind is amazing. And where do we go to feel this divine truth? Well, our hearts, our bodies. What if you were completely whole and completely one with God right now? Let's breathe. Here's pain, here's joy, here's pain, here's joy. Outside of that dance, God is within the dance. I'm not saying it's not in there, but the abiding presence of who you are is not attached to the low or the high. It's consistent, it never leaves. When you're sad, it doesn't leave. When you're happy, it doesn't leave. It never leaves. It's always there. The law of balance. The seat of the center of your being is your divine essence, your connection to the all. And my invitation for you is to remember. So, this month in April, we are diving into the alchemical marriage, the union of opposites, sun and moon, masculine, feminine, not gender energies. There are pieces to the gender. For example, men have a 24-hour hormone cycle, women have 28-ish day cycle. So there are some gender differences. Men have a solar cycle of hormones, rises and falls every day, consistent. Women have a lunar cycle, the phases of the moon, around 28-ish day cycle. There are gender differences, and it's really about this inner alchemical marriage. This unification on the inside. To heal means to become whole again, to remember yourself. So, yes, welcome to the journey of healing and being an active participant in your healing journey, editing your stories, evolving beyond your wounds and your family line and what no longer serves there. And you are already that. Go live the beauty way. So, can you hold both? Have fun with that. I'll do it with you. I am still healing. I am completely worthy. There's things about me that I'm ready to evolve past and change and alter, and I want to get fit and I'm ready to fitter and I want to move beyond this and that. And I am one with God. I'm already complete right now. Spirituality is about honoring duality in a large way and knowing that your true self is at the center, just waiting for you to wake up. I would love to hear if this activated you. Put a heart below if this spoke to you. That is your Mystic Monday for, I'm looking at the date, Monday, April 6th. And this is a weekly show, so stay tuned. All of my links are below. I have a podcast, the Spiritually Empowered Podcast. I have different offerings out there that I'm continuing to build. I've been doing this for a decade, about a decade, yep. And more is on the way. So thank you for being here. I love you, and I will see you next week. Take care.